Welcome everyone. Thank you all for being here. We've got an outstanding speaker for you today, Fritzi Gros-Daillon. She is an entrepreneur and a professional in industries related to seniors and senior housing. She does this work inside many organizations. I'll give you a partial list of the organizations that she is associated with. Senior Move Management, Age Safe America, National Association of Home Builders, National Aging in Place Council, Foundation for Senior Wellbeing, San Diego County Council on Aging, and National Association of Remodeling Industry, and she's the chairman of the San Diego chapter. She has many, many certifications. This includes Senior Home Safety Specialist. She has a master's degree in business from Columbia University. She's come all the way from San Diego to be here with us today. Please welcome Fritzi Gros-Daillon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So first off, congratulations on my name, right? Very few folks who introduce me get that correct. So congratulations to you, and now I can't do my funny opening. So thank you for the invitation to be here, and for all of you who chose not to take that extra day on the weekend to come and join us today. So I've titled the talk, and I'm going to try to get this to stay up. I've titled the talk, The Accidental Entrepreneur. That's because that's kind of what I am. And the title came really inspired by a 1988 movie, The Accidental Tourist. John Hurt, Gina Davis. In the movie, John Hurt plays a character that makes his life so precise that he's helping business travelers not have an accidental experience so that they could travel for business very carefully and never encounter the real world around them. So I came to entrepreneurship really accidentally. So this is me, and I put this slide in because you are my first live audience in 11 months, and so I am so thrilled to be here. Also, I found that in order to do this presentation, I got a chance to tell you my story. So we're going to start way back when I went to college. At the University of California in San Diego. What I did there, so I grew up in a military family. We lived in different parts of America. And I arrived at UCSD as a freshman, and 6 weeks later, I am president of the student body. Now, that's not anything that special per se, except that the provost of the college said, I'm sorry, you've been in college 6 weeks, you cannot be president of the student body. So the first year, he says you can be co-president with the senior, who really should have won the election, and I said fine. And so the next year, I was president of the student body. And I really didn't think anything of it at the time, except the opportunities that it gave me in that experience. So I had a chance, the accidental entrepreneur, to raise some money, to move some buildings, to help design part of the university campus because it was so new still. And so those opportunities became the foundation for some of my business learning experience. Now, of course, there's academics involved, et cetera. All right, so I don't graduate, right? Quit school, run off, get married, long story. I'm in the East now, right? I'm in New Jersey. And my first corporate job is with Con Edison. So that's our public utility in New York City, right? Huge organization. And I start there in customer service. Good place to be. The important thing about having an opportunity to have corporate experience is that you see how organizations create systems, how they manage their processes, and at the time, you are not responsible for the financial stability of the business, right? You become that when you're an entrepreneur in your own business. That's one more piece that you have to have. So I'm starting at Con Edison, and this is in the early 70s. New York City is a dirty, dangerous place. It's not nice like it is now. And the utility bills are out of control. People are complaining all the time. And our customer service department would read a complaint letter and they would say, okay, let's send them this letter that says, I'm sorry your electric bill is too high, we're going to reread your meter. But the letter really went on and on. So I decided for the Manhattan division that we're going to divide our communications up. And we're going to have greetings, we're going to have sections, little paragraphs that really answer people's questions. And then we're going to have a closing, and please get in touch with us and pay your bill. So that process of taking standard letters, making them into paragraphs, using a computer to be able to create these and personalize this was somehow groundbreaking. So they gave me an opportunity to manage the main floor district office, right? So now I'm 25, I've got 32 people working for me. Chairman of the board comes down and he says, gee, what a good idea to line the people up in front of the payment stations at the tellers. And I said, no, sir. I said, the carpet's torn. I came in on the weekend and I duct taped the carpet. Okay, now my boss upstairs is in a panic because I'm telling the chairman of the board that we need new carpet in the office. The bottom line is, in this course of these opportunities within that corporate structure, I had an opportunity to grow in different jobs, to try out supervising, to try out management, to try out systems analysis and move into staff positions. And while I was there, that's when I had a chance to go to Columbia. Now, the executive degree program at Columbia requires 10 years of professional experience, right? So my classmates work at the Federal Reserve. They work at huge corporations, right? Now, this girl's trying to figure out how to get into that program. And so what do I use? All of that wonderful college experience to create that 10 years that I needed to qualify for the master's program. And in that 2-year executive program, we were, in our class, there were 52 of us, executives from all parts of New York. It was the first and only class that had 26 women and 26 men. So this is the late 70s. Yes, I'm old enough to be your grandma, just saying. Right? So that experience was vital for so many of the other executives. We had people from Pan Am and Pitney Bowes, and all of us were learning and working together, and that was a valuable stepping stone for me to Bankers Trust. So I went to Bankers Trust after that program, and I go for a job interview, and they offer me a job in commercial accounting. And I'm going, no, thank you. Take the subway back to my old job at Con Edison, saying, what in the world are you thinking? How can you turn down a nice job at the bank? This doesn't make sense. Then they offered me a job in operations. And how many of you write checks at all? Ever? Anybody write a check? Great. Great. Okay, at the bottom of your check, the little black numbers, those are magnetized. Those are magnetized. And, again, all these years ago, the machines into which each of those checks goes is 40 feet long. They put a stack of them in one end, and they sort them out, and they go to all different banks all over the country. And that got to be my job. So I was thrilled. People working for 24 hours a day, running these big machines, that operational experience, And from that at the bank, I had a chance, and here is kind of where entrepreneurial is showing up again, right? I built my job. I built my job into representing the bank at the clearinghouse, to adding the software people who program those huge machines. All of those pieces come into play in a way that I didn't identify as an entrepreneurial spirit. All right, so I've gotten through here, I've gotten some education, and then it happens. This is the part where life kicks in, and although I had divorced the first husband and was on my own for quite a while, my second husband and the father of my son did not survive Hodgkin's disease. And so after those 5 years, I took a job locally in our town on Long Island at the environmental company. And the owner of the environmental company was a one-person business. He hired a young woman who was our asbestos inspector, and he hired me. And he hired me as the secretary for $8 an hour. And he said, I really can't afford more than $8 an hour to pay you. But he said, you're a bank vice president. He said, this isn't really fair to you. And I said, yes. I'm now a single mom. This is fine. It's close to my son's school. It'll work. So here I am, employed by a two-person business. And this is, again, now where the entrepreneurship is starting to show up, right? So I started this business, and to get to the end of that part of the story, eventually I own that business. My partner retires, goes to New Hampshire, and I owned that business for 8 more years after his retirement. That business did asbestos, lead-based paint, mold inspections, commercial, industrial properties, homes. And we did remediation. We cleaned up gas stations and dry cleaners and lots of different kinds of environmental, but really nitty-gritty problems. Unfortunately, we weren't doing anything big like climate change. We were just solving people's problems. In the middle of that time, before he retired, I kind of had enough of how our business relationship was working. So I founded Transitions USA. And I had said to myself, gee, if I go into an environmental company, maybe the customers will go with me, ego speaking here. And so I was like, no, I've got to do something different. And what's very different than environmental work? Helping seniors pack up their homes and move to assisted living or community or in with family, right? Completely different space. So I started Transitions USA, and for 10 years, kind of in the middle, because I went back to the environmental company again, I was running this business. And the business basically was just what I said. It was helping families work through and identify what were those important things that they needed to take with their next move for the next phase of their life. So in 2011, the environmental company became Anson Group under a new owner, same folks. Transitions USA became Island Transitions. The manager who was working for me in that business, she and her husband, took over the business. And each of those businesses are in operation today. So Transitions USA that I started in essentially November of 2001 will be celebrating 20 years in business, even though I'm not there. So all of you, I'm sure, have studied those statistics about 1 year in business, 3 years in business, right? So this is, those are my little prides here. Alrighty, so now, all these years later, I'm in Southern California. Started Household Guardians because one of the lessons that I learned doing senior move management was that people don't want to leave. People do not want to move out of their homes that they've lived in. They don't. And so I knew I was missing the market. So even though we moved 1,000 people over 10 years, I was missing the market in my transitions business because the market was really aging in place. People wanted to stay home. So Household Guardians becomes my business in Southern California. And ta-da! After carrying my laptop around with a file that said book, which I would look at and say to people, oh, I'm writing a book. Okay, I wasn't writing a book. I was opening my laptop, looking at the file, and it said book. So I thought I was an author, right? Not so much. So 2013, I say, okay, either delete the file, which I couldn't in my heart because of the stories, or write the book. So I took a couple of months and actually put the book together. I learned from a woman in Northern California, if you have 10 chapters, 10 stories, that's all you need for a book. You don't have to have 35 chapters, do 10, and you've got a book. Now, you've probably been able to figure out that I don't really take rejection very well, right? I don't take criticism that well. So what do? Rather than submit a manuscript over and over to publishers, what's the easiest thing to do? You make a publishing company, right? Right? Much easier than getting rejections. So I actually didn't put it up here because then Dr. Stillman's going to really roll his eyes. Okay, so this is, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little pink tulip here. I formed Pink Tulip Press. Opened the company, found an interior book designer. I went to the bookstore. I literally, this is back when the bookstores were open, I was feeling the covers of the books. I was looking at the images. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to communicate what my stories were about with images. So I was taking all these pictures of other books. I knew how I wanted it to feel. I knew that it had to be a certain size. I knew that I only wanted to carry a box of books that weighed 20 pounds. So because I was planning to go on a big book tour, and I wanted to be able to move those cartons easily, right? So, turns out 44 of these puppies in a box weighs about 20 pounds. But the stories really are, 9 of the stories are really related to those families and the transitions that those families were going through during my experience with Transitions USA. And the last story is the story of my mom and her desire to stay in her home after my dad passed. All right, so now we're up to where I am today. Age Safe America. So Age Safe America, I got involved in. I do not own that company. I have an equity share. Started in 2016, and we are a national training and home safety consulting business. So I did develop the online course, the Senior Home Safety Specialist course that's offered through Age Safe America. Yes, I am affiliated with all of those organizations. I teach the Certified Aging in Place Specialist course, the CAPS course for national home builders, and I teach universal design. So those are all components of what I'm up to now. But for you, now that you've heard the whole story of my life, I put up a few tidbits and takeaways. Oftentimes, when we talk about entrepreneurship, we say, do what you love, right? Do what you love and the money will follow. Well, not so much always. Just saying, you heard it here today, February whatever, right? Do what you like well enough to keep at it. Like it well enough to keep at it, to persevere, because now we're going to be doing things over and over, and part of it's not in our skill set. So that's my first piece of advice. Just do what you like well enough. Employees are not owners. That's a lesson I learned over and over, mostly in the environmental company, right? I'm at work, 6:45 in the morning. Employees come into work at 8:30, except one that comes in at 9:22. Every single day, 9:22, right? Now, granted, he's a night person and he would stay till after 6:30, but there was just something about that, right? And I wanted my employees to be as excited about the environmental company as I was. I wanted them to have enthusiasm and want to go out to like take those soil samples, grab that water sample, do all of that, right? I wanted them to help build the business and help me work on marketing ideas. Well, not so much, right? It turns out, despite my encouragement, they were employees in their mindset. And as much as I was trying to do to encourage the democratic workplace, right? So it doesn't always happen that your employees will actually have the same vision you do for growing your business. It sounds a little bit like I'm depressed here, but I just, you're a lovely, fresh audience, and there's just some things about the world that I just thought this was my chance. This was my platform. So y'all are listening to it. We all don't sell our companies and make millions of dollars. That's the other truth, right? So many of us will build a business, work in a business, support our families, have a great life, and not sell our business for millions of dollars. And so as we look at our opportunities, what are our opportunities to build the kind of life we'd like to have and not worry about whether or not this is going to make $1 million? Because not all of them do, right? Now, some of them do. Great. I'm here to say go for it if you can. But the idea that being an entrepreneur helps us understand where our opportunities are and how much we can build our own business and the success of our life is not necessarily measured in the millions of dollars. In your business, customer service is still vital. No matter what business you choose, your customers are first, right? You need them to make your sales. If you don't have sales, you don't have revenue, you don't have a business, right? And a number of us, when we're starting something new, like, I don't know, a publishing company or home safety company, what's the first thing we do? Logo, business cards, letterhead, landing page, right? Product idea, but until you make a sale, all of that's coming out of your savings. So what is it that's going to actually take you to that first step? And that's finding our customers and taking really good care of them. All right, you ready? Here we go. This is the future. So the exciting part for me today is the longevity economy. And I would like you all to just consider, even though it's highly likely you have very diverse interests in what business could be, we are in the longevity economy. Joseph Coughlin's book, The Longevity Economy, describes it in great detail. This is a phrase that was developed probably 3 or 4 years ago, and you'll see it if you use Google Alerts. Put in longevity economy and you can see what people are writing about. But we're going to take a look at what these topics are as it relates to where the opportunities are going to be for us to have our businesses. So the first is aging population, right? Not only are we getting older, we're lasting longer, right? So for you especially, and do I get a little red dot here? Maybe not. Okay. So in 2030, there will be almost 75 people over the age of 65. Right? And there will be about 9 million people over the age of 85. But by 2050, which is only 30 years from now, the population of people over 85 will more than double. We will have over 500,000 people in this country over the age of 100. Right? So what are we doing to get ready for how lives are different for people who are over 85, over 65, right? And over 100. Because for people over 100, for that 500,000 people, in not that long from now, who is going to care for them? Right? Who's going to care for those people over 100? The people who are 75 or 80. Who's going to care for them? Right? And this is where the whole look at where this is going and what we can be doing in this space it's just gigantic. So, housing, right? Clearly another one of my specialties. 57% of our homes have only one design element that works for aging, right? Older adults, a third of older adults fall annually. Right? If you fall inside your home and you're over 65, within 6 months you're likely to fall again. 700,000 hospitalizations. Right? We've learned in this last year you don't want to be in the hospital. You certainly don't want to be in the hospital for a fall. Billions of dollars in healthcare costs. Right? And only 3.8% of our housing units will work. So just for a moment, think about your own front door. Right? Think about your own front door. You ready? Do you have a non-slip doormat? Do you have a lighted doorbell? Do you have a table to put down packages? Do you have a light overhead? Do you have a motion sensor light that comes on? Do you have a peephole to look out the door? Now, granted, you may be living in different kinds of housing than individual homes, right? But those few things, right, just coming into someone's front door, that's where you could have a tripping, somebody could trip or fall, right? Just those items, right? Lighting, thresholds, all of those pieces are important to getting into our homes. Another piece of what we're looking at is our generational distinctions. So those folks who are already in their 70s and 80s and older, they're still our greatest generation, right? Very frugal. The boomers are coming right behind them. Baby boomers were born between 46 and 64. I will tell you, someone born in 46 is very different than someone born in 64. And as a generation, they will have inherited or earned more money than anyone. And they are the ones, the boomers, are the ones who are not going to want to recognize what their needs are going to be. I'm a boomer. I think I'm going to be great forever, right? I'm going to be great forever. And there's also a book called The Happiness Factor, which says that we as humans it's very difficult for us to even project how we're going to be when we're different, when we're older, right? We all think we're going to be happy. Well, took a fall right in the dining room a couple of weeks ago, as a matter of fact, tripped on my laptop cord. So, generational distinctions continue to our Gen X's and Y's, right? And millennials, and then y'all, right? So each of those generations has different ideas about what they could be doing, how they could be living in their homes. And this is another opportunity for us to look at, especially with the changes with the pandemic now, and people moving more and more toward multi-generational living, how is the housing stock going to work? How are we going to make our homes work for us, because we're getting older and the houses are getting older? Health status, again, for our consumers, it's a lot of what's driven is driven based on their health status. So I'm fine. I'm not going to make decisions. What do I need when I'm fine? Maybe some lighting. Financial considerations. Who's going to pay for this? Are we looking at programs and opportunities where there is social benefit? There is a new bill in Congress right now for a tax incentive to make home modifications. So the same way that the solar industry was built basically over these last few years by having the tax incentives there to give our homeowners a reason to go solar, we are looking at possible federal legislation that would allow us who want to work in people's homes to be able to have them finance it and make it much more, it's easier to identify for ourselves as a viable business opportunity. Okay. Technology advances. So everything from our voice-activated systems, right? Alexa, open the blinds. Alexa, turn on the lights. Alexa, put bread on my shopping list. Voice-activated systems also are becoming part of our telehealth system as well. So if someone falls in their home, they can say to Alexa, call my son, call my daughter. Alexa's not allowed by law yet to call 911. But other pieces of technology, the wearables, the wristwatch that knows that you fell, right? A good friend of ours, 96, wanted to be the first at senior center with an iWatch. His family wanted it for the fall detection. He wanted it for the cool factor, right? So our smart home technologies, again, how are all of these going to play and how can they be integrated in our homes, right? What do you need to have a smart home? You need an internet connection, right? So right then and there, how are we making sure that the homes that can take advantage of the technologies do in fact have what they need as the basics, right? So we've got huge opportunities here. So if you're looking at tech as an opportunity, if you're looking at biotech as an opportunity, if you're looking at these devices as an opportunity, lots of ways that we could build a service business related to the implementation of these in people's homes, right? These systems are not necessarily as plug and play as they're advertised. As a matter of fact, Best Buy, a couple years ago, created a program called Care Advisors, and they were going to convert a portion of their Geek Squad folks into care advisors to go into people's homes and basically sell the technology to older customers. And they wanted the young people in the family to really do the selling for them. So they had this care advisor program, and then they realized that it wasn't enough, that they weren't able to communicate well enough with the homeowners to make that sale. So now they've backtracked, and they're creating a whole new silo of business products related to health. So the monitoring, glucose monitoring, blood pressure monitoring, ECGs in your watch, all of those technologies are out there. More opportunities. So this is where I'd like you to start to think about if you're willing to work in this longevity economy, which is it's $7 trillion economy. There's going to be huge opportunities in lots and lots of ways for us to create successful businesses. One is keeping in mind high touch and high tech. Right? We still need, in our caregiving process, we still need to be with a person. How do we communicate that in a high touch environment and still using tech? Again, companies that are moving toward using data in addition to their caregiving services are going to be the companies that actually become more successful because they'll be able to track and help clients with their changes. In addition, with high tech, sensors, all different kinds of sensors are being invented, right? They're now finally making hearing aids that make sense and help people hear in a way that's not the $3,000 for the thing that sticks out and then somebody loses. The second opportunity is also in recurring service models. So we think of, and it kind of ties into trades and home modification, right? So we may think of a trade as a plumbing business, right? And what happens? You go out, the water heater breaks, you replace the water heater. You're one and done. But if your client really needs you to be there, you can have a subscription model for your plumbing business, right? You can be the Netflix of water heaters, right? Where you go and check it. Or you have a seasonal program. You check things in the spring, the summer, the fall, the winter, all of those prep items that we do, right? So things that have been done one way, now if we look at this whole world of subscription models, can be very different. And it can be like we do in home safety, right? So if I do a 240-point home safety inspection, I know your house pretty well. I know what the problems are. My recommendations to you are things you've really got to take care of this week, this month, longer term issues. What's the best for the family if they know that I'm going to see an aging parent? The best for the family is to sign up for Fritz's subscription service so that every month I go back and check, or every quarter I go back and check. So now I'm building revenue streams that are different, but part of still supplying that important service. So we talked a little bit about how old our houses are, right? 40% of the houses in the US right now were built before 1970. 40% of the homes built before 1970, 1978, they banned asbestos and lead-based paint. So 40% of our homes could have hazards in them, right? There, right? So now we've got another piece of work in someone's home that we can do in that percentage of our housing stock. So there are simple home modification opportunities. Things, for example, changing out thresholds, changing out lighting, or full remodeling opportunities. Curbless showers, taking out the tub, some of those things. So there's lots of kinds of opportunities in housing related to our trades and to home modification. Healthcare, home care, and concierge. Look at our services, right? How else can we support someone in their home? So concierge combinations are services that provide additional transportation solutions, maybe meal delivery solutions, in addition to either medical or non-medical home care. So now you can see, what if you have, and I saw this a couple years ago, in our neighborhood, a company launched a lawn mowing app. And it was like the Uber for lawns, right? All you had to do was, like, if you don't need your lawn mowed every week, but you want it mowed before somebody graduates, right? You could just go on this app and have your lawn mowed whenever, right? So it was like a service that for the longest time had been repetitive, had been just one kind of service, now was disruptive, and it was client-oriented. So these are more kinds of opportunities. I'm trying to get y'all excited here. Service disruptors, so DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, those are the ones who are cited most often. But our other service disruptors are going to be folks who can look at something like the plumbing in the house, the electrician. Being an electrician and being able to work in someone's home and convert their lighting to LED where they get better lighting and they save on their electric bill, right? There's lots of things that you could do, and then that would be a fabulous place to have a recurring service model, right? So that someone would know that you would be back to check on the house in that respect. Oh, was I supposed to ask if there's any questions? All right. Old ways won't open new doors. I just put that up because this is my way of saying where you all are in your individual experiences, your individual perspectives, how you can look at the world is going to be very important, because you are going to drive the direction that we go. And I just would like you to think about the fact that in this space, in the longevity economy, we have tremendous opportunities to build our businesses. Oh, so there I have questions. And that's me. Whew. Thank you. So anybody have questions? I'm going to take a quick sip of water here, somehow. Oh, somebody just do me a favor, ask a question. Okay, thank you. Yeah, you get to ask.
So you talked about having your second husband pass away and becoming a single mom. What kind of impact did that have on you as like an entrepreneur at the time? Or I guess you just started working for the environmental. So like what impact did that have on you, and what impact did it have on your future choices?
Actually, what it did was it forced me to work locally. It forced me into that entrepreneurial opportunity, because I chose not to try to commute back to Manhattan every day and go back to the job. I mean, the bank had, said I could go back. So that decision I made was really related to, okay, I need to work locally, and this opportunity is here for me. Yeah. Yes.
So after you showed the demographics on the screen of the age and the increase of demand for so many different...
We'll go back here.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one.
That one.
Yeah.
It kind of got the balls rolling of, okay, what's the next idea that will actually have an impact on this rising generation that's going to live longer and need all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, what is your process of taking one of those ball-rolling ideas into implementing it into a business? And I guess, is that something that you do by yourself at the beginning, or do you outsource a lot of it in order to get things running?
Well, one of the things that I have done is I've used other resources to help frame getting started. And I used the Small Business Development Center on Long Island when I started the transitions business. I went there for counseling about doing the business plan and really looking at those things. And my counselor at the time said, you have to write a business plan. And I said, no, I don't. I already have a business, I don't need a plan. And eventually I talked him out of needing to write a business plan. But that resource helped me identify some financial sources to get some of the things up and running, like we needed to buy supplies for the business, et cetera. When I went to California, I went back to the Small Business Development Center to start Household Guardians, and my counselor that day said, okay, write a business plan. And so I tried the same thing on her. It worked so well on Long Island. I've done this before, I don't need the business plan part. And she goes, no business plan, no help. I was like, what? Not the right answer. So I had to go back and do the business plan. But by following their protocol, then I met with a marketing person and a finance person, and they were a very good resource for doing business with the government, because there's a lot of protocols that you have to have in place in your business to do that. In New York, I had applied for woman-owned business status for 2 of my businesses. And in an effort to guide perhaps some opportunities to me that way. And so that's, but yeah, you need help. We like to think, although I tell you for the publishing company, I didn't ask anybody anything, I just did that one. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I am not getting a rejection letter. Right? So, yes, sir.
Just wondering, do you guys, you mainly deal with just improving the households? When you get some of these customers that need 24-hour care, do you work with other companies alongside of that, or is that all kind of grouped into your company as well?
Right now, that's, I use referral sources for that. Because right now, the Age Safe America model is more on the home side. My Household Guardians business is really just on the home side. So that's really a consulting job. And so I'll recommend specific folks to install grab bars, to an electrician. And a lot of them are members of our Aging in Place Council. I'm very careful about insured and vetted contractors that I would recommend in someone's home. But eventually, the Age Safe brand may in fact include some relationships with other, like home care. Yeah, yeah. Yep, no, great question. Great question. Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever had any major setbacks that really helped you work?
Major setbacks. Well, yes. The part that didn't make the slide, and that's a very good question. In 2005, I got involved with 3 partners building an active adult community in upstate New York. So we bought 13 acres of industrial land. You'd think a girl in the environmental business would know to test the soil first. Okay, so, and we did our homework, we had the right demographics, we had sales, we had contracts, we had 16 foundations in, we had modular homes coming in from Pennsylvania, and then it was 2008. And then it was 2009. And no one was buying retirement homes in upstate New York, even in a new fabulous development. So that was a huge setback. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned was that I put my own financial future at risk. I owned the building that the environmental company was in. I took a second mortgage. And to do my part for financing upstate, and it didn't work. And so that financial loss eventually cost me the loss of that building as well. It was probably now, all these years later, would be a better time to do it. And there wasn't any anticipation, right? 2005, 2006, everybody was building like crazy. People could get financing. And so that was a big lesson. And that one has carried on to like, okay, what's my financial risk tolerance? And what else am I willing to risk to make something work? But I was all in. And yeah, that was a tough lesson. That was a tough lesson. That's a very good question. I hope you ask that every week.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your accumulated wisdom with us. I want to point out one thing that I was struck by during Fritzi's presentation was her adventurous spirit and being willing to jump into new industries, new adventures, new locations, and that's what you would expect from somebody who accepted an invitation to speak from someone she doesn't know at a university she's never been to. So with that in mind, we'd like to present you with the Cedar Award.
Oh,
and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. That's beautiful. There we go. So I'm going to make this official.
Oh, thank
Grace
you.
and grit. Grace and grit. Yeah, it's real life challenges to aging, adult children and their parents, just in case anybody here thinks of themselves as an adult child.
Thank you. We'll have copies available in the Entrepreneurship Center.